Good evening once again. My name is Odie Hawkins and I'm here with Zola Salena-Hawkins and we're reading a short story. I'm reading a short story. She's nodding her head when she agrees with something or shaking her head when she doesn't agree with something.
Right.
So I have an audience of 300 all into one.
Me, myself, and I, yes. Watching you.
The story is called Malaria, and I'm finding out as I read, it's really about an African American living in a small compound at Palm Wine Junction in the section of Accra, Ghana, West Africa, called Osu. No, Labadi. Palm Wine Junction is in Labadi, very near the ocean. And the section I'm on now is what happened when a flood happens. And thus we continue.
Okay.
I discovered a deep love for the young woman I'd been sharing my life with the night we stood on the tabletop waiting to be drowned. She was so calm, so at ease. I wasn't. I pretended to be, but I wasn't. I think a quick death has to be a blessing. All I could imagine was a slow, agonizing death. The water was up to our chins, a murky black liquid that had washed through the filthy drainage systems. Don't let the water into your mouth, it will poison you. I considered every possibility for our survival. We couldn't go outside because we would be drowned or swept away. We couldn't cling to anything inside the house. The table we stood on was literally a lifesaver. Standing on a kitchen table watching gushes of water swirl along at the ground level and gushes of water pour from the sky, quietly talking with grace. Are you afraid to die? No. I thought I would be afraid when the time came, but it's here now and I'm not afraid. Water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And I really got thirsty for a while. I couldn't explain it. Maybe it was the malaria that provoked the thirst, but the malaria was soon dissipated by the tepid black water that surrounded us. I could imagine all kinds of dirty, rotten, stinking, nasty things being swept along by the flood waters. On the verandas in our compound, people were begging God and the gods to please stop punishing them, to let us live, to give us another chance. I have never heard such heartfelt praying before or since. Frankly, quite frankly, I thought it was disgraceful that this man would come and build his little house in the compound behind my bakery. It made me think of someone going native. It wasn't so much a matter of being in a Ghanaian mood. I mean, after all, my husband is a Ghanaian, and I've lived in Ghana for 25 years. It had to do with the level he stooped to. He seemed intelligent enough, but I didn't detect anything of a proper education. And yes, I did find out he was a writer. I couldn't begin to imagine what he was writing about. And he also spent quite a lot of time in the bar. Somehow that seems somewhat inappropriate to me that a so-called intellectual would spend so much time drinking beer. But so I've been told intellectuals are known to do that sort of thing. He came into my shop for croissants occasionally and once asked me if I could make some sweet potato pies. I told him we didn't have the pans for pies. He seemed rather disappointed. He didn't push for any special relationship between us simply because we were Afro-Americans, and I was grateful for that. One of the big reasons I'm grateful is because I couldn't imagine us being social. Him, a middle-aged man, living with a young, unmarried girl. Well, she may have been an adult, but she looked like a girl in any case. Clearly, a May-December arrangement. and I must say, immoral. This is this African-American woman who owned the bakery in front. And she was such a prick. Oh, God. But I'm getting off the story.
Yes, you are.
Okansi, the construction guy, was my introduction to the Christian crook. I love Jesus. He opened me up to a whole new level of chicanery, or to be blunt about it, cheating. But first, we have to play a little background music. As we all know by now, for a writer, it's always feast or famine. Frequently, famine. The feast had come to me in the form of a large residual check. Wonderful. Now I could build us a little house somewhere, a first for me. I had something to do with, I had to do something, anything to escape the Fair Gardens Motel, mosquito heaven, before I died from some exotic disease. I tripped around looking for a place to rent before the thought finally took over my brain. Build yourself a house. Don't rent. Build yourself a house. Now what? After the thought, action. A friend took me to see this charlatan who owned a TV repair shop who was just putting the finishing touches on a small house back there. The charlatan was so devout, he had built his own little chapel behind this TV repair store. Can you imagine? The little yellow painted house looked fine from the front. It was the rear of the establishment that caused me to cringe. The house was built over a garbage dump. It was built over a fourth, let me get myself together. First floor, like a porch that was built over a garbage drum. And the rear window gave a spectacular view of an acre of garbage that was bordered by a sluggish stream that bred mosquitoes day and night, no doubt in anybody's mind. What the hell? I'll take it anyway. At least it beats paying a daily rent at the Fair Gardens. And if my prayers were answered, I would move into something better in a month or so. Money changed hands. Okansi was in on the deal from the beginning. He hovered on the fringe of everything like a patient buzzard. The deal began to sour immediately after I put 500,000 CDs into the TV repair charlatan's hands. 500,000 at the time might have been $400. He made excuse after excuse for not completing the work on the little place over the garbage dump. I suspected he had used the money for some other project. I started weighing revenge possibilities. Throw some kerosene on the little chapel behind the TV repair shop. Catch him going for a midnight crap and beat the shit out of him. What? Okansi, medium tall, slim, extremely articulate, a Jesus guy. I love Jesus. Well, one of the most unscrupulous men I ever met in Ghana. I didn't know that then. A man who came up the hard way, carrying mortar on his head for construction crews. He'd done that. A devout family man who likes the good things in life, is willing to do anything to make a fast CD. Anything. Cheating is second nature for him. Okansi, the Christian cook, came to my rescue. Huh? I felt compassion for my African-American brother. He was having such a difficult time. It seemed to me that the best thing I could do was to have him build his house. Of course, I would make a profit on the deal, but that's the way business is. Hallelujah. I love Jesus. In Ghana, with the cheap labor and all, you can have a 4-bedroom house built in a month or less, depending on who the slave master is. Foolishly, assuming the best was going to happen, Grace and I checked into the Grace Jones Hotel in Labadi, January 1995. We were going to be there for 4 days, and then we moved into our house. Yeah, right. For 4 days. Week after week.
Oh my.
We pounded on Okansi's door, imploring him to do the job he had been contracted to do in an efficient manner. I didn't listen to Grace, who kept telling me, "Odie, don't you understand? They are not going to work well unless you go there and stand over them." I didn't feel that was the right thing to do. I didn't know Ghana or Ghanaian workers. Week after week. Meanwhile, I'm still paying money where Okansi is needing a few more thousand cedis for this and that. The cement is now higher than before. Meanwhile, we're paying daily rent to Mr. Nye in the Grace Jones Hotel. After a month, I persuaded Okansi to be responsible for the hotel bill. After all, it wasn't our fault that we had to live in a hotel while he took too long to build our little house. Of course, he agreed that he should be responsible for our hotel bill. It was only right, in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Mr. Nye, the Grace Jones hotel owner, simply frowned when I gave him the news that Mr. Okansi was now going to be the rent-responsible party. Okansi was well known in Labadi. 4 non-paying months later, Mr. Nye sent for a meeting with me. Very interesting meeting. Mr. Nye was an extremely pleasant-looking, brown-skinned man with a dazzling smile. Whenever he released it, the two men who were part of the meeting were not very pleasant-looking at all. Mr. Nye and his pals ragged my buns pretty good, but I felt a very weird sense of detachment from what they were talking about. Maybe it was the malaria. I had malaria. I'm sitting up at this meeting with these people. I'm sick as a dog. At the end of the palaver, we stood and shook hands. I had not agreed to do anything that I hadn't planned to do anyway. I knew inevitably that I would have to pay Mr. Nye, but it was going to be on the installment plan. Mr. Nye, of course, wanted his back rent in a wad. I couldn't handle that. So we wound up at an impasse. I'm up the creek without a paddle. I'm splurging excess money into a bottomless pit, and now that the gloves have been removed, I'm responsible for the hotel bill. I'm paying money for 2 places to live and have no place I could call home.
Right.
I was depressed for a couple of days, real depressed. The outrageous thought of moving to a half-built house stirred me from my depressed lethargy. One bright afternoon, I packed all our accumulations into several large boxes while Grace was at the market. I knew she would veto such a radical move, hailed a station wagon taxi, and pulled off a house-occupying coupe. Everyone was stunned, including me, when I realized that our forced occupation of our little house at Pine Wine Junction was forcing matters to a head. Mr. Nye could no longer collect rent for our occupation of his choice, his room, and Okansi, the Christian crook, could no longer ask for money to do stuff that we were looking at directly. The house was suddenly completed.
Okay. That's funny. In not a funny way.
And Mr. Nye was calling for a palaver about his 4-month back rent. We met on Okansi's turf right there under the liar's palm tree. Balmy night, succulent smells issuing from the left and right. Mr. Nye came with 2 henchmen. Okansi came with rhetoric to spare, and Grace and I came with no help beyond the encouragement we could give each other. There, under the palm tree, we had a meeting that made me think of ancient treaty conferences. Mr. Nye opened the session with a solid businessman's rap. I want the money that's owed me. Yeah? I answered him by reminding him that Mr. Okansi had agreed to pay for our hotel room. I even had a witness. Surprise! Al-Haji, the Muslim landlord of the compound that we were moving into. Unfortunately, Al-Haji was not available to make a statement, no matter. My case was made. Enter the golden-tongued dragon. Okansi started off from so far in right field that it seemed impossible he would ever be able to slither past all of the obstacles around him. He was extremely articulate in English, and we discovered a wizard with the gar. I didn't have to understand the poetry of the language, the fluid dips and swirls, the hip curls and all of the rest to realize that Okansi was going to have it his way at the end of the day. After 20 minutes of listening to him rap, I didn't care what was being said. I was simply mesmerized by the tones he was saying it in. It came to an end much too soon. I wanted to hear more. I think I was a little crazy about that thing. It really wasn't necessary for Mr. Nye to inform me that I was going to be responsible paying the back rent.
Gotcha.
That's where we started.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bit of win-win, no-win situation for everybody. Mr. Nye was going to get his back rent on the installment plan, which is not the way he wanted it. Okansi eased out the back way, but I don't think he carried a residue of goodwill with him. People admired his eloquence, but thought of him as a snake, not a good Ghanaian vibe. I had the house I'd always loved it for. What did it matter that the front door hadn't been put on the hinges yet?
Oh my.
And I think I'm going to end it there for the moment. Or should I go on for another page or so?
Another page or so.
Another page or so.
Mm.
Understand, while this is happening, I have malaria. Up and down, on and on.
That's it.
Odie was quite a generous chap. That was the first thing I would have to say about him. I cannot recall the times he shared his chop with me. And he always had excellent chop. Banku and okra stew, good kinky and pepper, wachi, turkey butt and fish from Adabraka, fufu and goat, groundnut stew with fish, spaghetti and smoked fish. And he had several girlfriends. It would have been impossible for him to hide that sort of thing from us here in the hotel. Otherwise, he was quiet, minded his own business, did a lot of writing back there in room 99, a lot of writing. He had several serious attacks of malaria during the 4 months he lived in the Fair Gardens here. Well, we must remember that they labeled this place mosquito heaven a long time ago. I can recall him stumbling through the corridor on his way to his room to dump buckets of water on his head to try to bring his fever down. We sprayed his section of the corridor after his malaria, but that never seemed to prevent him from being reinfected again and again. Oh, Big Eddie, the desk clerk. The Fair Gardens Hotel, right across this very dangerous strip of road from the Fair Garden, from the Trade Fair Center, was where I lived for 4 months prior to becoming a troubled homeowner at Palmwine Junction. The Fair Gardens Hotel, to be simplistically fair, I'm doing like a flashback thing while we're going through the flood. The Fair Gardens Hotel, to be simplistically fair, was a mosquito paradise. I guess that's why they nicknamed it Mosquito Heaven.
Why was it a mosquito paradise?
I'm coming.
Okay, remember.
But it was more than that. It was an introduction to long-winded clients, customers, fools lived in an African hotel. No room service, but beer. Thank you, Grace. Another Grace. A one-woman bar on the outskirts of the hotel, propelled by Doris, the Adangme woman who had been married to the Frenchman who loved her madly for God only knows how long and then died. Leaving her with smattering of French and a bunch of Frenchified notions. Oh, well, I'll answer the question. Why did this go to the mosquito heaven? It was a place where mosquitoes could always get a good bite. Because you had to go take a shower. And this, mosquitoes are known to come out at twilight in the evening. These poor guys, I'm talking about the poor guys who went to take the shower. These mosquitoes came out at midday. You would jump in the shower and they would be buzzing around. And you think after the water would hit them, they would go away.
No.
But they didn't. They actually swam in the water and landed on you. So by the time you finished the shower, you'd had several mosquito bites, and which is going to turn into malaria at some point.
Wow.
Doris, the Adangman woman who had been married to the Frenchman, who loved her madly for God only knows how long, and then died, leaving her with a smattering of French and a bunch of Frenchified notions. Oh, we would have benefited more if we had been colonized by the French. There, alongside the drainage ditch that depersonalized all of us with the mosquito attaches, she Frenchificated. She Frenchificated while swatting at mosquitoes.
Oh my.
If only France had colonized us, we wouldn't have the mosquito. There was a lot not to get into on the political level. Doris would have been an Uncle Tom on U.S. terms on any level. And then it would have become much more politically intensive on the spiritual level. Stuff was not cohesively labeled, okay?
Right.
The bottom lines covered a lot of ground. The important thing to remember is that Big Eddie and Grace were there to help one understand how to cope with Ghana. Big Eddie was the desk clerk, and this Grace was one of the people who delivered stuff to your room. Odie, you must not make yourself think so much. It will surely drive you mad. Of course, I tried to take Eddie's advice after all. Was he not a Ghanaian?
Right.
It was difficult to not think, but I think I may have succeeded a few times. I'm sure I lost the ability to think when I was forced to dump buckets of water on my head one night to try to chill out a malaria fever. Fortunately, Big Eddie came along and sprayed my section of the corridors to fight off the rear guard of the mosquitoes who hadn't attacked me yet. Life in the Fair Gardens Hotel was not fair. And that's where I'm going to leave that at this point.
That is nice. Thank you very much for the reading.
Okay, I'm going back and forth a little bit, but that's the way life was back then.
Very interesting.
It was not linear and running on some perfectly designed line. It was up and down.
Gotcha.
But in between, one thing I could count on
What's that?
was malaria. Every other week for 3 years, I had malaria.
They had a malaria unit at Walter Reed Hospital in D.C.
Oh, you saw people there with
people who were conscientious objectors had apparently agreed to be human guinea pigs and try to get rid of malaria for them.
It's the most dreadful kind of thing. First of all, it makes you feel ashamed of yourself in some weird way because you have so little control of it. I was laying up one night chewing on my pillow, trying not to scream, because I had my back, the vertebrae, it started sounding like a xylophone.
Wow.
I could feel them clanking up against you, straight up and down my back. I had a fever. It had to be hot enough for me to just feel like I was boiling, but at the same time, I was freezing to death. And so I'm trembling, my teeth are chattering. I didn't want to drink water, I wanted to drink orange soda, so the woman who came back and forth, I guess you call her a maid, she would go and get drinks for you and stuff like that. I had drank about 10 bottles of orange Fanta soda. Meant nothing. She said, maybe you should drink water. I didn't want water, I want orange soda. I didn't have an appetite. So, after about 3 days of sweating like that, I'm telling all of those who wish to lose weight quickly,
that's the cure.
Get some malaria. if they brought in a few mosquitoes and put them on you right, you lose weight.
Thank you.
So that's where we're going to leave it at this point. The situation continues. I have now covered what happened when two people stand on a dinner table, breakfast table,
and they survive,
waiting for the flood waters to flush in and drown me, her. I have backtracked to the point of making myself understand how I could be living in one place and paying rent for two places and not having the one that I'm paying for built so that I could move into it. Boy, they had me yo-yoing for a while until I just got crazy and went in a taxi with all my earthly goods and parked right in front of the house that we were supposed to be building. And of course, Mr. Okansi, the contractor, was being shamed because people were saying, you know, why is Odie sitting there like that? Because Mr. Okansi has not finished the house that he promised to. And so we did move in, which of course left me with a very touchy kind of relationship with Mr. Okansi.
I bet. To this day. To this day.
So the story will continue this time next week.
Okay. Your website is www.odiehawkins.com. I invite you to like this video and subscribe. And also, you can Google Odie Hawkins and on Google and see the many wonders he has created. Thank you very much, Odie.
As my friend Eddie once said to you, you are wonderful.
Almost in Eddie's voice, too.
Nobody can get that voice.
Nobody can get Eddie's voice.
You are wonderful. No, almost. I'm gonna keep trying.
Very good. Yes.